Welcome to episode number 9 of Education, a Clusterfuck in Need of Repair. This episode is entitled, At the Heart of the Job, Community and Leadership. Before we start, I'd like to emphasize that all ideas presented in this podcast are my own and do not reflect the thoughts, opinions, or positions of my employer, Emerson College, its programs, or its representatives. I don't do this to change the country. I do this so the country won't change me. It's hard to become a member of a community when you're above the students, above the staff, above the teachers, and above the parents. You really need to be of them. This episode is entitled, At the Heart of the Job, Community and Leadership. But first, a detour. Already, I hear you cry. You have no self-control. You're not telling me the news, I'm afraid. Most of my life feels like a detour some days. Anyway, like many people in the education field, I've been struggling after the most recent election. There's definitely a current of what's the point out there, and I can feel that current pulling on me. Doing a podcast is a lot of work. I'm doing it on my own initiative. The country seems to be embracing the iceberg, not the passengers from the Titanic who are struggling in the freezing waters. Maybe I should just stop kicking. No floating headboard for me. That's a Titanic reference for those of you who missed the movie. It's a small indie film, limited release. You may have missed it. Don't blame yourself. No, but seriously. Then I found this story on someone's Facebook feed. A reporter once asked A.J. Moost, a Dutch-born American clergyman and pacifist who protested against the Vietnam War, do you really think you're going to change the policies of this country by standing out here alone at night in front of the White House with a candle? Moost replied, "Oh, I don't do this to change the country. I do this so the country won't change me." So I've decided to continue this podcast, in part so that the clusterfuckery that is claiming our education system doesn't change me. And in part because the costs of just drifting in that current of inertia aren't paid by me. They're paid by kids who can't kick hard enough to free themselves. They're paid by teachers who are pulled into the current by the system that's part of the problem. They're paid by parents who are often at a loss of how to resist for their kids. And ultimately, they're paid by society, which will be defined by the right and wrong thinking, the acting out, the lack of creativity and innovation of the millions of humans we're making in our public schools. It's not the time to let go. It's the time to hold on harder than ever and scream our fucking heads off. As my refrigerator magnet says, speak truth to power, even if your voice shakes. So, my original plan for this episode number 9, was to launch into consideration of the impact of in-school leadership on the lives of teachers and learners, and on the learning that happens or fails to happen in our classrooms. I have a juicy interview with one teacher all set to go, another one in process. I have tons of lived experience with a huge range of principals, good, bad, and indifferent. I'm on firm ground on this one. It's a no-brainer, right? The problem is that every time I tried to think about this, my mind took a detour to the subject of community. I resisted. I'm perfectly positioned to talk about leadership, damn it! I'm the master of my own thought process, right? Wrong. So I compromised with myself. Pathetic, yes, but necessary in this case. So episode number 9 will look at the relationship between school leadership and community as a launching point to discuss this huge topic over the next couple of episodes. Humor me. Some background. For most of my life, I was a person who did not experience community. I am desperately shy, so I was silent for much of my school life. Then I went away to a summer program when I was 17. Something my mother regretted till the day she died. Then I went away to a summer program when I was 17, where I realized that my quirky sense of humor and somewhat grim life view were very entertaining for my peers. Well, go figure. Going forward, this gave me a way to be with other people, entertaining them, but I didn't feel of them. So much so that when I was at Harvard, I was shopping a class called School and Community. At Harvard, you have the chance to shop without buying. Ah, privilege. In the opening class, we were asked, of what communities are you a part? That's a softball question, right? Sure, anyone could answer that. And everyone else bubbled with answers. I couldn't come up with one. So I decided to skip the alienation in spite of the interesting learning opportunity, and I withdrew from the class. Bye-bye. Chavez and McMillan describe community as including belonging, connectedness, influence, fulfillment of needs, and the importance of both having power and recognizing it. The closest I came to that sense of community happened in schools, both with other teachers and particularly with the students. But it was limited due to the power, age, and status discrepancy with the students and my need to hide the more unusual and profane side of my personality from the teachers. Fuck me. But my love of learning anchored me in the world of education, and I felt most at home there. Then I became a principal. I often say that I sort of stumbled through my life, saying yes to opportunities that interested me and no to ones that didn't. Becoming a principal was no different. I was in a bad patch with my employer at that time, and on a whim, I inquired about a middle school humanities teaching job at the very alternative private school that my kids attended. The owner of the school suggested that I might be interested in becoming head of school for the K-6 campus called the Farm School. I told you it was alternative. Each class had a bird name selected by the students and used for the year. Chickadees, recess is over, peregrine falcons, lunch. Very alternative. Anyway, I suggested that I had no interest or experience in administration. She responded that I had a certain natural leadership and asked me to think about it. 1 week later, I was accepting the job. A detour. When my daughter was 11, she came to Hessel, my partner, and me, and said that she wanted to get a pet. And to quote her, not one of Lukey's stupid snakes, a cuddly pet with fur. Since I'm allergic to everything in the world, and cats in particular, we started researching hypoallergenic dogs that day. Then, the next day, we started virtual shopping. Oh, what a cute puppy. It's too bad it's February and we don't want to get the puppy until spring. Just to be sure what the process was, we decided to explore how you'd actually, buy one. 2 weeks later, we were picking up a 10-week-old Shih Tzu puppy from Missouri at the airport. Be careful of those slippery slopes, my friends. Decisions are never as clear-cut as you think they are. And back on track. At Sparhawk, that's the name of the school where I worked, I had an interview with the teachers as part of being hired. The teachers, most of whom had worked at the school for at least 5 years, felt a lot of ownership of the curriculum, of the multiple intelligences approach to teaching and learning that was central to the school, and of the kids. One K1 teacher, Lisa, who was a senior teacher, asked me in quite pointed tones what my plans were if I were to become head of school. I said, I don't know. It depends on what you feel you need. I think my job is to support the work you do. I was accepted almost on the spot. It turns out that the previous head of school was not beloved, as all the parents thought she was. She played favorites and made mean remarks about the teachers' performances, So much so that the storage closet in the farmhouse kitchen was used by the teachers for private crying and raging. So the bar was not set high for me. But I was a good principal. I'm very kind. A tiny detour. A grad student once told me, "You're not exactly nice, but you're always kind." I took that as a compliment. Anyway, I will always find a kind, gentle way to say what needs to be said. I will always offer help. I'm hella good with behavior management. I give good advice, and I believe in the importance of teaching and learning. I was what those teachers needed. I love and enjoy kids, and I'm funny. The kids loved me. And I am driven by the need to do the best possible job in all circumstances, which endeared me to the parents. Another small detour. I do not do my best around anything technological. I don't even try. I hate technology. Technology hates me. And as far as I'm concerned, technology can go fuck itself. I married a tech wizard, and as a result, I've moved into levels of tech incompetence that are actually a little embarrassing. Back to it. After the salon of episode 8, I had an impromptu conversation with the participants about their experiences with administrators. One of the teachers from a wealthy upscale community talked about the new principal who started this year. He has distinguished himself with the teachers, students, and parents by working hard, attending every event, every sports game, every production, and every concert. By being available to parents and students alike, and by supporting the importance of teachers and what they do, both implicitly and explicitly. We briefly discussed whether a superhuman commitment to the job is the only way to succeed in wealthy communities, but be that as it may. It's hard to become a member of a community when you are above the students, above the staff, above the teachers, and above the parents. You really need to be of them, no matter where you work. So the teachers at Sparhawk didn't just accept me into their community, they pulled me in. They ignored my cranky Yankee standoffishness, my social awkwardness, and they literally and metaphorically embraced me. I became of them. And the more I felt that community, the more I wanted to do for and with them. The more I protected them from capricious decisions by the owner of the school. For example, who wanted to replace all the lockers with open wooden cubbies with no doors by tomorrow. I think it was her Little House on the Prairie thing. She was picturing bonnets and slates and school books hanging on leather straps, not crumpled papers and My Little Pony Trapper Keepers and old bananas. This event actually caused me to develop my philosophy of dealing with upper administration that I follow to this day. Until I've been asked to do something 3 times, I just don't. But I digress. The more we protected each other from overly involved parents, a detour. Again, so soon? Yep. There was one parent who'd come up to you at the end of the day when the kids were running around waiting to be picked up and start talking. And talking, and talking, and talking. We had a rule. If you saw this parent talking to someone, you'd wait for 1 minute, then go up to the teacher and tell them that I wanted them for something. It worked like a charm. It didn't hurt the parents' feelings, and it freed the teacher. Magic. Anyway, the more community we built, the more the community built. It's a healthy cycle that informs every aspect of school function. People help each other in part because they know that others have their backs, that they'll be there when they need something. Parents who feel part of the school community tend to support the teachers and facilitate the positive function of their kids. Kids who feel the positive community of their school are more likely to want to be there. Unless you think this is only possible in a small private school, there's an elementary school in Waltham that has committed itself to developing positive community with the kids, the parents, and the teachers. When the kids arrive at school in the morning, they are greeted with warm hellos, big smiles, brief conversations about their new sneakers, etc. The parents are greeted similarly and seem comfortable dropping their kids off at school. Is it paradise? Of course not. It's a school, with all of the complexities of personality, all the challenging students, and overworked adults present in any school. But the commitment to creating community makes a huge difference in how people feel about being there, and it definitely impacts the learning of the kids. And it both starts with the principal and fosters a positive environment for the principal. And when I was a principal, I truly can't say enough about the impact those dynamics had on me as a leader. I still miss the community of that time and place. I mentioned at the start of this episode that I've experienced a full range of leadership styles. For this moment, I'm going to deal with extremes. Very good, as it was at Sparhawken and the Waltham Elementary School, and very bad, as it was in the first public school I worked at in Lexington, Massachusetts. This was a very well-resourced school in a very wealthy community. The principal had been there for many years and demonstrated many community-shattering behaviors, including playing favorites among the faculty, giving bad duties to those he didn't like morning and afternoon bus duty every day, stopping you in the hall in the precious time between classes to tell you stories about his daughter, then chastising you for being late to your next class, stuffing the classes of his favorites with the best kids in the grade, and putting all the difficult kids in a single class with someone who was out of favor, ignoring people who wanted to speak in faculty meetings, and on and on and on. Trust me, he was an asshole. As a result of these behaviors, the social-emotional dynamics of the school were terrible. Teachers were tentative, territorial, suspicious, and worried about making even tiny mistakes. Kids were either golden and could do no wrong, or were bad kids who could do no right. And as a kid once told me at Sparhawk, everyone thinks I'm so bad, I'm going to be bad. Well, the bad kids at this school were very bad. There was no way to change how they were perceived by the adults in the situation. Parents were aggressively protective of their kids, which resulted in strained relationships with their kids' teachers. It was a mess, and it all started at the top with the leadership of the school. In the 40 years I've spent in schools, I can state without hesitation, positive leadership begets community within a school at all levels: teachers, staff, students, and parents. Negative leadership has equal power to demolish community, which makes leading harder and generates negative dynamics at all levels. To quote an earlier episode, kids are curious until we teach them not to be. And when we give them something interesting to do, in an environment in which they feel safe and known, in which their skills are noticed and applauded, in which they have a sense of agency, they're less likely to look for bad things to do. But I could as easily substitute the word teacher in place of kids. Teachers are curious until we teach them not to be. And when we give them something interesting to do, in an environment in which they feel safe and known, in which their skills are noticed and applauded, in which they have a sense of agency, they're less likely to look for bad things to do. Or substitute principal. Principals are curious until we teach them not to be. And when we give them something interesting to do, in an environment in which they feel safe and known, in which their skills are noticed and applauded, in which they have a sense of agency, they're less likely to look for bad things to do. These are universal truths, universal needs. What changes is the nature of the bad things with which they respond. Theoretically, teachers don't smash restroom sinks and toilets with hammers or vandalize the school. But they do start to overreact to kid behaviors in the cafeteria, for example. They do find certain kids unbearable rather than simply annoying. And principals don't arrange physical fights in the parking lot after school, but they do demonstrate favoritism towards certain teachers that separate them from the community of their peers, that fosters resentment, undermines cooperation, and impedes successful teamwork. Or they blame teachers for problems they themselves can't figure out how to solve. They ignore the potential power of shared effort that lies in a learning community and give in to the most primitive of responses, a metaphorical goodie cabinet that rewards the few, punishes or ignores the many, and makes us all individual players in a game that cannot be won alone. This feels especially tragic to me because a principal, a department head, or a team leader are all positioned to give teachers something interesting to do, to help them feel safe and known, to notice and applaud their skills, to acknowledge their agency. This needs to be at the heart of the job. Community is not a magic solution to all problems. Life isn't that simple. But though insufficient, I'd argue that community is a necessary foundation for all effective school leadership. And it enhances rather than diminishes people's experience in schools. That feels like a big payoff to me and worth the effort. We'll continue this discussion of school leadership in the next episode with a few more scholarly references and interviews with teachers who have a lot to say about the impact of leadership styles on their lives in schools. I hope you'll join us. As always, thank you for listening. I look forward to talking at you some more on February 14th. If you have time, please post a review or share this with someone you think it would be useful for.
J like the letter, I'm making several waves. I know the mission is same. I made a splash, now all of my passes last like running a race with Usain. I keep it coming like this a buffet. And if I'm stumbling, I'm in the grave. Never gon' fumble it, I get the bag and I run with it, gunning it, gunning it, gunning it, gunning it.